This is my first live, guys. Hello, hello, hello. I tried to go live the other day, but it was not connecting. Anyway, I thought to be just come on here and just kind of introduce you guys to myself. Now, I had this whole idea of celebrating the 1,000 subscribers, just like people do when they hit 100,000, 500,000, a million. However, I'm not quite settled yet. So once I get a place, I'll do that in my home and I'll celebrate with you guys. It'll be a little late, but I'll still celebrate. We can break out the apple juice, the cranberry juice, have the balloons, and we'll do an official, oh, yay, I hit 1,000 subscriber videos. Again, it's going to be late, but I'm going to still do it. I just got to get settled first, okay? And I'm working through that right now, trying to figure everything out as far as college and where I'm going to be living currently in the search, looking for a home or condo because I owe $6,000 debt. So that's blocking me from getting an apartment. When I got my money back from disability after I got my case, and I can still work. The 23,000. Basically, I tried to pay the 6,000 off, but the bank at the time in Boston wasn't answering. I should have just quit and paid it out, but I went to work, and then as the days went by, I didn't keep trying. I just spent it on hotels and Uber, and I basically ran through that money. I spent, I paid my tithes. I got my car, but somehow it went through fast, and I know like that's crazy. I should have made sure I paid that out, but it's blocking me from getting an apartment. With that being said, I have to stay in like hotels and extended stays, and they're too expensive. So I'm like, I'd rather save this up. So currently, I just figured let me just try to get a house or a condo. So that's what I'm trying to do right now. So once I get settled, I would do the official. Oh yay, boo! I hit 1,000 subscribers. But here, let's do a get to know me. So my name is Akira Bradley. That is my birth name. Um, Jamila Bellingport came about because Jamila is my middle name, so my birth name is Akira Jamila Bradley. Jamila Bellingport is my it was my ascribed, it was the name I gave myself because I wanted to be a gospel rapper. So if you would, my stage name, you know how celebrities change their name when they become famous, that's why I came up with Jamila Bellingport. Again, Jamila is my actual middle name on my birth certificate. Bellingport is just fancy, it's classy, it sounds like me, and I'm a Southern belle, and I love the name Belle. So somehow I thought of Bellingport, and I thought, oh, I love it. So Jamila Bellingport is me. A little bit about my background, the obvious. I'm from Dallas, Texas, the greatest state in the U.S., the big D, swag on deck. Um, I grew up the only child my whole life. I went to a few HBCUs, including Clark Jarvis, Texas College. My favorite one, I loved when I was at Clark, but Clark was too expensive, so I couldn't stay. So I was only there for a year. But when I really think about it, I had the most fun at Jarvis Christian College. I just should have stayed. I think I let stuff that I was going through at the time run me away, and I think it was a plan of the enemy, and I should have stayed and graduated. At the time, a new dean had came in and told my mother she can't graduate because at the time I didn't know how to drive, and I was like one semester away from student teaching and getting my degree. So I went to Texas College for a semester. One of my friends turned on me and tried to fight me or whatever. I got in trouble and my mom took me out. I went to TWU, still didn't graduate because I owed like $300 that the president wouldn't write off. So me and my mother at the time became homeless after that. And we stayed in the car for about 6 months. And then after that, God blessed us with an apartment. And about a year later, my mother had passed away from a heart attack. I went to church one day. She wasn't able to go. She said she wasn't feeling well. I came home and she had passed away. The ambulance had to knock the door down and they found my mother dead on the floor. And I knew everything would be different when I saw them move her lifeless body like this. And this woman that was so full of God and so full of the Holy Spirit and so full of joy, love, peace, and just goofy was actually dead. But her spirit was with Jesus. And I knew, I knew that it was over as far as everywhere my mother went. I was a mama's girl. She passed away when I was 26 and I was in college. Then I was working. I was trying to get back in college. So I was with her the whole time. And my mother was saved. But before that, y'all, I was raised by a single mom. Her name was Yvette Bridges. She was born in Boston, Massachusetts, to Ethel Bridges and Cooper's Camellia Cooper. She was raised between Boston, Atlanta, and Dallas, but she did most of her time in Dallas, Texas. She graduated from Lincoln High School, class of '86. So anybody from Dallas out there, you might remember my mom. And if you look at my face, I kind of look like her, but I'm the chocolate version of her. But then I also look like my dad as well. My dad wasn't really in my life like that. I moved away from Atlanta. I was born in Atlanta, Georgia. Me and my mom left when I was 7 and a half. And I was raised in Dallas, Texas, on up. Most of my family was in Dallas. And so we left Atlanta, and so, but still, my mother raised me. I had a beautiful life. We traveled, we did cruises, went to Disney World. I think the first place we went was Disney World when I no Hawaii when I was 8, and we did Disney World. Then we did a cruise. Then throughout the years, we did like 3 more cruises, and we always stayed in a big convention, a big beautiful hotel every year, once a year for the PAW conventions. If any of you are Pentecostal out there, I'm Apostolic Pentecostal, Acts 2:38. Apostolic means the apostles that follow Christ, the apostles' doctrine, which is just everything Jesus taught in the Bible, and the oneness of God, knowing that He's Jesus Christ. And it is the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, but it's still one. And Pentecostals believe in the Holy Spirit, the day of Pentecost, Acts chapter 2. So I'm Apostolic Pentecostal. I'm a part of the PAW organization. Although currently I'm at another church because I've had some church hurt from one of the previous churches I was at. But I grew up going to the conventions with my mom every year. And so what am I saying? You know, as a single young lady raised by a single black mom, it was a little different because I traveled a lot with my mom. And nowadays we have a lot of single moms that's like, I mean, they fortune 400, you know, they making 1 million a year, 100, so it's nothing new. But back then it was rare because really wasn't no kids getting out of whatever city. If you was in Oak Cliff, you was in Dallas, you was in Atlanta, Bankhead, ain't no single mama and her one child or even kids know nothing about traveling, but I did by the grace of God because God always blessed and favored my mom. She wanted a trip to Hawaii, then she would always schedule trips for us to go on once a year. Then, like I said, we would stay in a nice hotel with the convention. So I was used to growing up blessed. I was blessed. I wasn't spoiled. But as I hit about 12 in Pleasant Grove, I realized, you know, I was a little different. I didn't fit in with the regular kids, the urban kids. Most of them cursed. Most of them was a little bit more hard than me because I was kind of in the hood at that time. And I was like, that was my first time seeing a fight firsthand. Now coming from Atlanta, I grew up in a saved household, went to a saved church, Galilee way across. My mama was saved, so I was sheltered from all the cursing, the violence. When I was 6 years old, somebody pulled out a gun when I was out there with the kids in the parking lot at our apartments in Regal Pine. We was in Jonesboro, Georgia. I ran straight to my mama because I saw death. All the other kids was like, wow. But when I was younger now, I'm gonna give y'all my whole life story. When I was younger, I would go to Dallas for the summertime. My mom would send me to Dallas for the summertime. That was my first time experiencing the hood. Dallas Section 8, and it was Cedar Glen South Apartments in Dallas, Texas, Bonnie View Road, right up the street from South Dallas. And that's where my grandma and my uncle stayed. I would stay with them. And most of those times I enjoyed myself. I was a kid. It was the 90s. You know, we had fun. But that was my first time seeing the cussing, the secular music, the blues music in Dallas, violence. Somebody had stabbed the girlfriend, and we knew who that was. Everybody knew who. So it was my first time getting a firsthand look at all that because I grew up in a safe household. During that time, I got molested shortly, but after that, I quickly forgave. And moved on. Also, what else, y'all? So, like I said, I grew up with my mom in Dallas, Texas. We were blessed. We traveled a lot. She worked at Baylor Hospital as the main receptionist. Again, her name was Eva Bridges. She worked there for 12 years. Just in case anybody from Dallas know her. If you went to Lincoln High School, if you went to Grambling, my mama went to Grambling. She went to Clark, but she said she should have stayed at Grambling. I went to Clark, couldn't stay TWU, and I had encountered this racist experience at TWU with one of my theater teachers. I went to him and he said he was gonna give us extra points. So I came to him respectfully, like, hello, I'm just checking on my extra points. He was like, why are you checking on your extra points? And then he was like, should I call the police? I said, call the police for what? Like, it was very crazy. It was like stepping back in time. And they was like, we're going to try to put you on where you have to be on profile, student profile, probation, whatever. My mom's like, you shouldn't be on that. And we tried to get in touch with the NACCP because it didn't make sense what they were doing. But we left and I went to Jarvis, should have stayed there, had a good time in choir, went through some things there, and ended up going to Texas College. And there's this man that keeps looking in here instead of minding his business, just keeps looking at me. Let me show y'all this man in the green right here. He he keeps looking. It's annoying me. Um, and I went to Texas College and I had to leave because one of my friends got into a fight and they tried to put me on probation and I didn't deserve that because she was giving me a hard time. I was going through a hard time. I went through a hard time with females. Went back to TW, still didn't graduate. So right now I'm just trying to switch my degree from early childhood education to secondary history. I want to be a high school teacher because of being separated from the army. That made me realize we need mentors and we need youth. Hello to everybody out there. This is my first live. Welcome. This is kind of a get to know me. I'm gonna try not to bore y'all, so I'm gonna try not to go over 20 minutes. I'm going to officially do a celebration for my 1,000 subscribers once I get in my home and get settled. I'm in the process right now, so I can't do that right now. But what was I saying? So you guys, let's go back to, I grew up in a saved household. I'm Pentecostal, I'm apostolic holiness. I was born and raised in holiness my whole life. My mother had me out of wedlock. She shacked up with my father for about a year. She came back to Christ. She said, God told her, you're going to serve me or you're going to go to hell. She said, God, I don't have the mind to serve you, but if you give me the mind, I'll serve you. She said he gave her the mind and she served him. Church girl, but more than that, saved. My mama taught me to know the word, know the Bible for myself. Now let's get back to my life story. So yeah, I grew up blessed with my mom, right? But when I hit about a sophomore in college, my mom lost her job at Baylor. She took me to college and they said she didn't let them know and they ended up firing her wrongfully. That's when things really start getting hard from us, from what I could see. When I was younger, my mama said she struggled, but I couldn't tell because I was the only child and we always had. We were blessed. So I couldn't tell. But my sophomore year in college, that's when things started getting hard and we started kind of to struggle because she lost her job and I was in college. And eventually we had to leave our apartment because we couldn't pay for it. And we ended up going to college together at TWU, staying there until we left. And we stayed in the car for 6 months. And my mom was in and out the hospital for those last 4 years. So she died in 2018, but since I'd say about 14, we were in and out the hospital. She had heart failure, kidney disease, and malignant blood pressure. And backstory of my mom is when she was growing up with her mom, her mother used to get beat up by her boyfriend. So that traumatized my mom as a child. She kept it in all those years. She had no one to tell but me. And she would say when she would go out and play with friends or she never really wanted to leave because she wanted to be there to protect her mom from her boyfriend. Or when she would go with her family, she couldn't really relax because she would wonder, is he beating up on my mom or whatever? So that's her backstory. So that's, she only told me. She never really saw a therapist. And she said one day when she talked to the doctor, they said there's something inside of you. There's some trauma. There's some pain. There's something that can cause sickness and it comes from your childhood. And she told me she knows that's what it was. I have a deeper story. I'll go through it later with y'all. But we stayed 6 months in the car, homeless, or 3 months in the car, 3 months in the shelter. I told the one girl she was funny acting, stinky booty funny acting. They kicked us out. And then we stayed in the car for about 2 weeks. God bless us with our apartment for about 4 months. 4 months later, my mom passed away of a heart attack, and I ended up going into homelessness again. This lady took me in for a few weeks. I witnessed to her daughter about Jesus, and she had told me not to do that. And she dropped me off at another shelter. That shelter was pretty horrible. It had bed bugs. It was really bad. I had slept outside for the first time during that time. I really experienced what it was like not having my mom in that unsheltered life and just being on the streets during that time. I don't know if they would kick us out of the shelter for like random stuff. And the first night, no one had any room for me and this other young lady, so we slept outside. And I slept outside another time, and what happened was I was in the shelter, and it was okay at first. It really was. It was a lot of food. It was okay. The only thing was the bed bugs and the girls that run the program. They was kind of ghetto. Besides that, you know what? I was okay. But as time passed, this young lady, I was saved, and I started noticing it's just a lot of sin, a lot of homosexuality, a lot of drugs, a lot of people just settling because they give us free food and clothes. But what happened was I went to this program across the street from our shelter because they had free food. I wanted something to eat. And this young lady said to me, you don't even go to this church. You're just coming for food. And I said, how you going to judge me and you a whole abomination because she was a dyke or homosexual? She was like, okay, I'm going to get you. So the next day she ran up on me and she started fighting me. Now she wasn't a threat. She was only about 3 or 4 feet tall. And I was taller than her, but she was pregnant at the time. And I was around there preaching all the time. And I had already told the Lord, I don't want to be fighting. So I didn't fight her. So I let her punch me in my eye, and I didn't hit back. Crazy part, didn't hit her back. And not even know, and I could have easily knocked her across the street, but I didn't. Not even knowing that she had her family there just in case I would hit her back, ready to jump me. Now, I ain't the type to be punked. I might get a little nervous, but I ain't never no punk because I'm used to being by myself. I'm used to fending for myself. So they really don't know me. If I could have fought everybody. I don't know if I would have won, but I wasn't no punk to be suckered. But I didn't fight her back because I wanted to please God. I didn't want to be fighting. I was always preaching. How this gonna look, you preaching, now you fighting? Come on now. So she was running her mouth. They looking and they tell my neighbor, she's, oh, I beat her up. And they just looking. And some of them were, talking to me, talking about, I'm sorry that happened. Her cousins was like, well, if you so blessed, what you here for? I tell you, 2 weeks later, I left that shelter. I said, it's too much sin, too much homosexuality, too much drugs. But the main thing was the girls. It was this other woman, about 10 years younger than my mom. She was just so messy and jealous. Talking about, oh, yeah, and you going to get punched by me too. It was too much jealousy. So I had to leave. And that's when I spent my first night downtown Fort Worth just roaming around. Then I would just be on the buses sleeping. I would sleep outside of the stairwell of apartments. I slept at the airport for 3 weeks right before God brought me out of homelessness, when this Hispanic man took me in. Before that, before me sleeping at the airport, I slept at each hospital in Fort Worth for about 5 nights before the cops found out and was like, you got to go. And one story I always tell is I was at the Children's Hospital one night sleeping outside on the bench. And this white lady thought, oh, this black girl's trying to mess with me and my children. So she called the cops, like, oh, what is she doing? I was just trying to sleep. I'm used to being sheltered and I'm out. So she called the cops. I was running. So I hid by the atrium in the bushes. The sprinklers came on. I laid down on the ground, the concrete, and the sprinklers were right on top of the sprinklers. I didn't even know it was sprinklers. Somehow it was in the ground and I got wet. And I said, I just refused to move. So I just fell asleep that night and it was horrible. Woke up feeling like I had slept in a 10-star hotel. That's how good and that's how great God is. And like I said, I spent plenty of nights on my own. I was roaming around Fort Worth. So, and at this time I was still in the church. And had family in the church and all that. Nobody took me in. They dropped me off at the shelter. That shelter kicked me out because I called these two, the man and the woman were a couple, and they was treating me funny. I said, you're not going to talk to me like that. They kicked me out. I ended up at the bed bug shelter. Had to leave that when I ended up just roaming around on the streets. Nobody there to help, nobody to take me in, but I did stay in church. And a little bit after that time, I noticed a different preacher came in. It kind of changed as far as it seems like, I don't know if the word was so much holiness. I just don't know. And I know one time they had like this African dance thing in church, and I was like, what did that have to do with Jesus? The outfits were inappropriate to me. The doing all this and doing that. I said, what did that have to do with Jesus? That might have been okay for a Black History program at a museum, at a school, but that shouldn't be allowed in the house of God. So I started finding things that was conflicting with my beliefs in this church now with this new change and everything. And I started trying to get back in the choir. Well, we'll see. It's like the church members didn't want me there because I was homeless and I had said what I was going through, and how one church member had, she dropped me off at the shelter. These other ladies, I don't know if people were falsely talking about me behind my back, but it was a lot of gossiping going on. And I would talk to some of them, just speak to them, and I would notice how ugly they would treat me, and I even talked to the bishop. I said, would you like me to leave? I'll leave. And he was like, no, I love you. And we talked and all that. He even paid half of the deposit for me to get my first apartment after the Hispanic man. He took me in and let me rent a room. I paid him maybe a month or two. And then I had got a job at Walmart, wandered up, got the job. God blessed me with it. But I wandered there on my own, not even thinking they're going to fire me. Nobody got it, but God got it for me. And so that's my story. And then I got my apartment. But they didn't want me to sing in the choir at this church all of a sudden because they felt like I was making the church look bad because I was homeless, saying nobody's there for me or whatever, or saying what I was going through. I was just telling my truth. And then I remember trying to teach Sunday school, and a new preacher saying, you got to audition to teach Sunday school or be in the choir, or we got to make sure you're not a child rapist. And this is because this man is famous. He's a famous gospel singer. He took over the church. And so he was saying I have to be careful. But my whole thing was I wasn't used to that. So that bothered me because I just was like, I'm a servant of God. I teach Sunday school. I do understand from the perspective he's coming from. With him being famous, a lot of people are just coming there to stalk him. They could be child molesters. But for me, I just wasn't used to that. I was used to, if you want to teach Sunday school, you can teach Sunday school. Because 9 times out of 10, people only gonna really ask to be in stuff that they know they can work in. But it was conflicting, and people just weren't treating me the same. It's like they weren't showing me love. People, I know I could tell they were gossiping about me. Some of them and they would try to show me love. It just didn't feel the same. So I left that church. I had a lot of church hurt, and I went to my other church, which I'm gonna have to go back to. Right now I'm just at another church healing. Then I'm probably gonna go back to my other church because I still want to stay in the PAW. If it don't work out, I'll just join another apostolic. We got Bible Way, we got Way of the Cross. I was in Way, we got a lot of organizations. So So I'm at this other church healing, and that's my story. I was at Walmart, and so at Walmart, I worked there for about 10 months, and I was doing good. That was my first. That wasn't my first job. I had my first job at 15, but that was my first job where I had to work to pay bills because I stayed with my mom till I was 26. Not because I was a nothing. I was in college the whole time. I was a mama's girl. Very church girly, so very old schoolish, very old fashioned, if y'all can understand where I'm coming from. So it wasn't like because I know a lot of them was like, he 26, she never been with her mom, but y'all have to understand that I am, and I was when my mom was 26, it was like I was just still 16 and 17, maybe 20 just then. Because unlike y'all, I have to break it down for a lot of them, because even when I lost my mom, they was like, she was too old to be staying with her mom. I'm not like y'all. Y'all were mature. You probably lost your virginity when you was 13 or 14. I'm 32. I'm still a virgin. So I was very much a church girl, an old-fashioned Pentecostal girl, a mama's girl. And even though I was 26, again, it was still like I was 16 and 20 because I was just used to being with my mom. I wasn't used to being with no man. I ain't never seen my mom with no man. She used to allow my dad to visit me when I was younger, but that was it. I was not used to that type of stuff. And a lot of y'all can say what you want to say, but that takes away a lot of maturity when you're still have a part of your innocence. I might not be outwardly innocent, but I still have a big part of my innocence. So that takes away a lot of the maturity that's supposed to come from being 26 and maybe you got a little girl, maybe you working. No, I was used to being with my mama. Okay, I was still a child under her. Even though I was grown, I was still like a mentality of a child. I was used to being under my mother. I'm trying to give y'all my background. So, I would hear people saying stuff. And so what happened was, okay, I lost my mom. That broke my heart. I could have lost my mind. And I was like, Lord, even when they pulled her body out that day, I said, what did I say? I said, blessed be the name of the Lord. I was not angry with the Lord. I promise you I wasn't angry with the Lord. I said, blessed be the name of the Lord, because I know he don't make mistakes. But I was hurting though. I couldn't really eat for like a day or two. And I had these sisters took me in for a couple of days, and I said, Lord, just give me peace. And I woke up the next morning, and God just had this sweet peace over me. And I watched the movie Paddington, and I fell in love with it, and God just gave me sweet peace in that. I knew it was God. And the day before my mother's funeral, real quick, let me hear you. Oh gosh, it's only 21. It's already 21. I'm trying to make this short. The day before my mother's funeral, I was in this room. This sister had kept me for that week, I think. Because remember, y'all, I was basically homeless. My mother was my sole income because I was just used to being a college girl, working maybe McDonald's or whatever, but they never really treated me right at them job and being with my mom. And I told my mom, even when I get married, you can live with us. I'm giving y'all my backstory. So the day before her funeral, I'm in the room and I'm laying there and I feel these little lights. I see these little lights and I feel like angels are just surrounding me. And I sung that Vicky Yohe song, You Deserve the Glory, at my mother's funeral. I feel like the Holy Spirit dropped that in my spirit because he saved my mother from hell. My mama told me, he said, either you're going to serve me, you're going to go to hell because you're chosen. She said, I don't have a mind. She said, you got to be real with God. But she was humble. She said, I don't have a mind, but if you give me the mind, I'll serve you. That's why I say, young people, you got to ask them for the mind because that's my mother's story. My story is I never really was out there like that. I was never really out there clubbing and drinking and fornicating, but lust is what I struggle with. Masturbation is what I struggle with. Loneliness, selfishness, maybe anger, stuff like that is what I struggle with. Dressing kind of iffy-ish as I got older, stuff like that. And okay, so yeah. So it's 2018. I got the job at Walmart. God bless it. We got my first apartment. A Hispanic man met me at the bus stop. He said he was Pentecostal, said he can rent a room out. Stayed there about a month and a half. God blessed him for blessing me. Bishop at the time helped me pay my deposit, get my own first apartment. I stayed there about a year and a half. God blessed me with a better apartment in Fort Worth. And I was at work. I was at Walmart for 10 months, and this young lady came up to me. She was homosexual. She started just telling me about her lover. She just started telling me just out of nowhere. And so I just told her, that's not God's will and da 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 da, just according to the Bible and in a loving way. And she said, my mama said the same thing, but I don't know if she went back and told the manager something else because it was like, she said that you told her that her daughter is going to hell because she cut her hair. I said, she didn't even have a little girl with her. What do you mean? And then I guess they thought because I was Pentecostal, they had heard some beliefs. I know some strict apostolics, usually the Caucasian ones, don't believe you can cut your hair, that if you cut your hair, you'll go to hell. So it was like, I knew, and I could tell they was making up stuff. So I was like, now what did they say now? And then she was like, well, she said, and I was like, and And I was like, well, I don't believe in homosexuality or gay marriage, if that's what you mean. Like, and I think it makes people bold, because if they ask me, I'm gonna tell you. I don't care what the result is. I don't care if you fire me. And now about I made it like 3 more months, and then Corona broke out, and this guy was following me. So I turned around and coughed on him because he was getting on my nerves. I was like, oh, he told the manager, and it was like, that's it, we firing you. So they walked me out, and I was just about to move into my next apartments, the second set, and so what happened, y'all? They fired me, right? And they thought if they fired me, I would go back to being homeless. I said, Lord, don't let me see no lack. I moved right into my apartment. A week later, I'd already paid the deposit. God blessed me with the job at Amazon. I kid you not, 2 days later. And at that time, you just signed up online. You can still do it, and you do go in for an interview, but they hired us all immediately, no interview, because it was during Corona. And so I went from $11 an hour to $15 an hour. Had a nice apartment. I stayed at Amazon for about 10 or 11 months, and I was late because I used to commute 4 hours now. I would get up early, and I would have to get the first day I worked at Amazon, I walked all the way from the east side of Fort Worth to the downtown train station, like a 20-minute walk at like 2, 3 a.m. because I was determined to get there. Then I realized, okay, I could Uber. So I would Uber at 3 a.m., go to the train station, catch like 2, 3 trains, 2, 3 buses, and walk 20 minutes to work, and then do the same thing over again and get home at night just to get back up at 3 a.m. And I did that for about 10 months, and I got tired of being standing out there in the dark by myself, or being late. Or staying out there in the neighborhood in the dark. So he fired me, and that's what made me join the army. I said, you know what? I can join the army. It'll help me go back to school. At this time, I was trying to really get back in school, and I was talking to this guy online and sending him money, and it was taken away from me focusing on getting back in school. So what happened? So I joined the army, and I was like, I can be a chaplain's assistant, HR. I should have been a chaplain's assistant because that's right up my corner. But I said, let me do something that I can do physically. So I did HR, and boy, I had the time of my life in basic. I stayed in trouble. This one lady just did not like me, and it wasn't that I was so bad. She didn't like me, and them cussing at me didn't go well with me. So I would go out, be fussing at them when they be cussing at me. They wanted to kick me out then, but God made it to AIT. Had the best first sergeant ever. She was strong and disciplinary, but she cared. She talked about me, so I wanted to really work on my attitude and all that, for her, for myself. But because I saw somebody that actually believed in me, I wanted to make her proud. I wanted to make her happy, like as kind of like a big sister figure. And then she said, I worry about you because I don't know who you're going to get. And if they can, whatever, they could kick you out for, it don't got to be nothing major. And that's what happened. I ain't going to go into that story. Basically, my sergeant, I'm going to be honest with you. I feel like my sergeant was just jealous of me. The sergeant that I had got moved to in the Army, I did 16 months. I stayed with her. I was only with her for 2 months. Before that, I was at a workshop, and I was only there for about a week or two, and I was supposed to be at the S1 shop getting trained, but they said we got to move you to the main base to get trained. No, I was at the S1 shop, but I needed training, so they moved me a camp on the other side. So long story short, it would be little things like they said they were gonna separate me for failure to adapt, uniform violations, being late, stuff like that, little things. Oh, your hat's not on right. This officer tried to give me a wrong time, and they wanted to punk me. So he came in like, oh, yeah, I had to let her know your hat wasn't on right. And I asked you, and he was looking at me, and it was this white man, and he was looking at me. And when I see people like that, I ain't talking about just any white man, any white woman. I can take authority when you're right from anybody, but when I can pick up on your spirit, and I can pick up a little plantation or pick up a little master in you, and you thinking you gonna, because I hate to say it, but a lot of the army is still racist, contrary to what y'all think. They are still racist. They still don't want to see a black woman as an officer, as a colonel, and there are plenty of us, but they still racist. And so when I seen that, I said, oh, I'm gonna have to be. I tried to fix it. I let you know. I tried to fix it, blah 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 blah. But he was like, oh, I thank you, and I said, hey, well, I can only be me. I can't do nothing if you don't like it. And then they were saying something. I was like, well, do what you have to do. Because I really don't, like, I'm not here to kiss up to you. I'm here to do my job. And I think their whole thing was they wanted to scare me, like, oh, well, we can separate you. And I was like, okay, I'm not kissing up to you, and I know this is petty stuff, and y'all just picking on me. So they ended up separating me, and God ended up giving me 100% because He knew that they wasn't right, and I wasn't perfect, and I would work on myself. But even when the first sergeant cussed at me, and I had already asked him before, please don't curse at me. I'm saying, just talk to me. He was like, I don't care. I do curse. And so the last time I lost my temper because I've asked you and you cursed, but I did go back and apologize still. But then they separated me, but God turned it around in my favor. So now, y'all, this is where I am. I am trying to get settled right now, trying to get back in school, trying to get me a place, a permanent place, instead of like hotels and stuff like that, have to pay off my debt. But I just wanted to kind of give y'all a little bit about me. I also do gospel rap, I do gospel poetry, and I sing. And I sing, I rap, and I poetry, and I do poetry. I do gospel soul. I would be a gospel soul artist, and I'm praying to get a studio in my home or condo so that I can record my music and all that like that. Yeah, I think I'm done. I think that's a bit about me. I'm 32. Like I said, Dallas, Texas, raised to a single mother. My mother passed away March 4th, 2018. My grandmother passed away 2 months after that. She had $20,000 left for me that was stolen while I was homeless. And I had a lot of hurt and a lot of pain. And I'm still dealing with the trauma and the hurt and the pain, to be honest with y'all, from within, from bloodline ties, and from outside. The army was just another avenue of rejection for me, just more trauma, just adding more to the trauma because they didn't have to separate me, but they did. But God, I'm still here. So I just kind of want to encourage y'all and let y'all know some of the things that I've been through. I've been a misfit my whole life. I went to an art school, I went to Arts Magnet for theater. I had some friends and they left me. They was like, oh, you shouldn't hang around her. Seemed like I went through a lot of not fitting in. Being hurt by friends time after time. Even in college, my college friends did the same thing. We were real close, and then they end up leaving me. So I have this where I've just been alone, where friends would come in and friends would leave me. A lot of misunderstanding, a lot of, well, she ain't no star, we ain't nobody's backup, just stuff, and it caused trauma and it caused hurt, but I'm moving on. So that's my story, y'all. I hope I hit everything, but just to let y'all know a little bit more about my story, as when I was in 15 at Booker T, those friends walked away, and I would be so ashamed to sit by myself in the cafeteria at this art school, that I would go hide and try to eat in the bathroom, or I would stay in the library from like junior high on up. When I noticed I would be by myself during lunchtime, I would try to hide in between the portables and in the bathroom in the libraries. So I have a lot of stories about my rejection, about me being alone. Now, when I finally hit Duncanville. I left Booker T my junior year. I hit Duncanville. Then I finally was like, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to be who I am. If I have to walk alone, I have to walk alone. If you don't like me, you don't like me. And then as I got college, when I went to Clark Atlanta, it was kind of embarrassing because it was so many cute guys, and it was cool HBCU, and those friends left me, and I'll be by myself. But I would just keep going, you know. So that's just my story. Those are my stories of rejection and my stories of trauma, and I never really quite fit in the church either, especially the second church I joined. Never quite fit in. Um, I kind of was sheltered and kind of hurt. So when one time I know one girl was trying to be my friend or trying to talk to me, and I don't know why I said something else, but it was just a lot. I just been through a lot of hurt, a lot of rejection. So I'm trying to heal from that trauma, trying to heal from that pain. Um, but otherwise than that, like I said, I do gospel music, I do gospel poetry, I write. I'm trying to be a history teacher for high school so I can work in the hood. Currently trying to see if I can stay in Texas because I was going to go to Virginia so I can stay local and get established and get back in church like I need to, as far as going back to my home church and singing. I'm at a church right now, but I need to get back in the choir. I need to get back connected to my PAW organization or the Apostolic Faith. I'm at a holiness church, but they're not apostolic, but they're still children of God, and it's blessing me, and they show a lot of love. But that's just a little bit about me, just to introduce y'all to me and just kind of see and get a feel of who you're listening to and who's behind the person making these videos. And it is none other than lowly old me. All right. So again, I'll come back once I'm settled and I'll do my celebration of the 1,000 subscribers. But that's it. If I missed anything, if y'all want to know about again, I'm the only child. I don't have any siblings. I have siblings on my dad's side, but I wasn't ready. I stayed there for like 7 years. So I knew my big sister for a little bit. Then I left. And then I had seen my little sisters when they was just born or whatever, but so it's just me. I got family down here, but we ain't close after all that homelessness and all that hurt. And they did invite me to Thanksgiving for the first time in 12 years this last Thanksgiving or Christmas, but the hurt just wouldn't let me go. It just seemed like it'll never be the same. Y'all pray my strength in the Lord. God bless y'all, and that's it. If you got anything else you want me to say, let me know and I'll do it later.